Hi, I'm Erwin. I'm obviously not Cherry Chan, professional accountant. I'm standing in for Cherry today, and here I have Andrew.
Hey, Erwin.
Andrew's a very accomplished investor, contractor, podcaster, so we have a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So let's get right into it.
Sounds good.
What do you look for in an investment in the current market, but I want to frame it for a beginner?
Yeah, like if you're talking like just a house to rent out or something along those lines, you've got to be thinking this needs to cash flow because my value could go down. So you're not looking for something necessarily that's got to stay at the current value you buy it at. Why not think longer term? I certainly think that's important. Like you can't be thinking this is a 1-year flip or an 8-month flip because who knows where the values are in 8 months. So you got to have a longer term mindset, specifically here in Ontario and probably most markets in Canada, where we're watching values come down significantly because of interest rate pressure.
So we talked about high-rise condominiums. You're talking about detached properties.
Like I don't like condos because it's one more layer of government, we'll call it, that's telling you what you can and can't do with your property. So big thing for me would be finding properties that don't have that issue. If you can find multifamilies like a duplex, triplex, where the numbers make sense, you can cash flow today and then say, go grab your cash flow spreadsheet and plug in the numbers and say, hey, what if interest rates went up 2%? Could I still cash flow? And these are the type of things you need to ask yourself, because if you're going to hold real estate long term, which real estate is a long term play in general, that's how people build wealth, by holding real estate long term. The key is being able to ride the storm. And the storm is fluctuation in interest rate, fluctuations in rent rates. So have buffer. Play with your numbers. Do a bunch of what ifs. What if rents go down a little bit? What if interest rates go up a bit? Am I being reasonable with my maintenance figure? Are there any major renovations coming up? A good cash flow spreadsheet will have, some squares filled in for this, where, you should be budgeting a fair number, like 5% for maintenance at least. Who's managing your property? If you're new, you might want to hire a property manager, and there's a potential 8% expense or maybe even more. So these are things you need to be aware of, be realistic about, and make sure there's cash flow in that deal, because who knows where values are going, and you don't want to be stuck in a property that's worth less than you paid when you don't get cash flow, because that's a good way to lose sleep.
So great answer. Now I want to move on to general contracting. You've done the job. You've hired general contractors before. Some have gone well, some have not gone so well. Because I remember you discussing it on a certain really, really good podcast that's out there.
Yeah.
Talking about both of ours. But the question is, it's a big question. How do you hire a general contractor?
So if I were to hire a general contractor, the biggest thing is finding somebody who has something to lose by working with you in a way that's anything less than forthcoming, like being above board. So if you work with a contractor you hired off of Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji or whatever, they have nothing to lose if they screw you over and take your money. They could take a deposit. I've had a hard and fast rule. I don't give deposits to new relationships. I just don't. So how will we overcome that? Well, what we might do is I might buy the materials myself and put them on site, because that's usually why a contractor wants a deposit, for materials. So I'll pay for that myself, and then I'll agree on milestones. I'll say, hey, I can't do a deposit, but I can pay you once a week, every week, as soon as you complete this amount of work, and we'll come up with milestones and we'll work it out. If somebody's not willing to do that the first time they work with you, they might not be the right contractor for you. But the biggest thing is that relationship, where if that person were to do something sideways, they would have something significant to lose in reputation. So I know, Erwin, like, you have a big network, you have people you send a lot of business to. They would be very silly. It would be very foolish of them to do anything but a great job for the clients you send them, because then they lose their referral source. You have to be thinking that way. So I look for communities. I'm investing in the US right now in Florida, and I went to a real estate meetup. It's called a RIA down there. It's an association of investors. And I'm working with people that have had like a 10-year plus track record with that RIA. So they've got something to lose if they don't do things right and if they don't act fairly. And that's what you want to find.
Right, and they have a strong reputation within the existing community.
You got to have a good reputation in the community. Don't take randoms off of, Kijiji. It's just not smart. I've hired people off Kijiji regularly, but I watched them like a hawk, and they weren't general contractors. If you're a general, is somebody you're entrusting to, here are the keys, give me the finished product. That's a huge responsibility, and it's not something that you can just hand over.
Now we're going in a completely different direction. Podcasting and content creation. How does one get started? And why does one get started?
I think the why is more important. So when I started, it started with Instagram, doing like little short videos, just kind of sharing what I was doing. And that was like 2018. And I did that because I read Gary Vee's Crushing It. And I realized that if you share your story, share about doing things that you like talking about anyway, down the road, that'll pay off in some way, and you might not know why or how. I like talking real estate, so for me it was like, okay, so I can do this. It's fun anyway. It'll build a following, and there's a long-term potential payoff. And that's why I started. I've monetized indirectly on the podcast so far, but I see really big things coming up. And so how to start? I think you got to start simple. Like I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to audio gear and film and stuff and video editing. But I think for most people, like you can start filming content on your phone. Pull out your phone and start posting reels every day, like TikTok these days. We mutually know someone who was at the golf tournament we were at, who in 6 months did 150,000 in commissions her first 6 months as a realtor by posting TikTok reels. Or TikTok videos and then reels on Instagram. So it's never been easier to get spotted. The key is consistency and then of course doing a little research yourself and making it interesting. But I mean, how interesting? It's not like it's that much work on TikTok. Don't you want to be like 10 seconds to 15 seconds as a video?
Yes.
Like they're short.
Yeah, they're short.
Just make it impactful. So I think the biggest thing is consistency for anybody. Tell your story, even if you're new at investing, share with people, because as you share your journey, now all of a sudden you have friends and family who want to invest with you. They want to help you through that journey. They believe in you. You might have potential buyers for your flips, or if you're flipping, or just people who in one way or another want to help you, or find contractors, find other people in a community that can help you in your process and in your growth. And a big thing of my content creation is it's allowed me to have relationships like this one and many more of people who I really value and like talking with, and we grow by talking.
Fabulous advice. And I'll just add to that, by getting started and being consistent, you're probably going to get better.
Oh yeah. Your first stuff is not going to be great.
Oh yeah.
But then
My first reels are embarrassing.
You'll look back and you'll be like, wow, okay, I've come a long way.
Yeah. That's wonderful advice. Now, I want to ask a question around short-term rentals. Should a beginner get into short-term rentals?
I think short-term rentals are a huge risk right now, just because so many municipalities are cracking down on them. And when you get into that business, you're at risk of the government just coming in and saying, oh yeah, you can't do this anymore. So I like to say have a plan A, B, and C. And you can have short-term rentals be your plan A, but be willing to sacrifice the $10,000 or $5,000 in furniture. If you're okay with that, sure, it might be for you to try it out. Know that it's management heavy. Make sure you do your diligence on it. Make sure you understand what you're getting into. If you're hiring a management company and you can make those numbers work, great. But be willing and be able to pivot. If Airbnb doesn't work out or gets shut down, now you can pivot over to a regular rental, or you can sell it. Have a plan A, B, and C, because as an investor, I don't know how many times plan A really works. I mean, you can always hope for plan A, but if you don't have a strong B and C, then down the road, that's when it comes back to bite you.
Right. And I'll just add to that, get proper insurance.
Get proper insurance, full disclosure, big thing.
Yeah.
Don't hide details from your insurance company, because they will investigate if and when there's a claim and might tell you that you weren't covered. But they would have collected fees all the way up to then. Maybe they'll give you some interest on the fees they collected and give them all back to you.
That's a nice return.
They might give you some interest back on that, but then you're out the rest. So don't take that risk. Full disclosure with your insurance company.
Fabulous.
So Airbnb, student rental, disclose it.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm Mr. Chan, standing in for Cherry Chan, obviously not professional CPA. Andrew, thanks so much for coming in and sharing your experience.
Thanks for having me.